I just like to emphasize that those first 12 years I served, which were in the 80s and 90s, was under a Democratic majority. And the Republic, we've got 101 House members, so we use that as an example. It's about 70-30 is what it was when I was there the first time. And then I came back not really intending to. I was encouraged to run. The Republicans had taken over, and some friends that were still up there had called me and said, "Hey, we need you to run." And I said, "Well, what for?" "Well, there's a guy running for your seat, and he's a rhino, and we got too many rhinos already. We can't take any more rhinos." So I ran again. And this issue we're going to talk about, I knew was one thing, like some things, as the saying goes, never change. And this was one thing that doesn't change in legislative bodies, regardless of the party change, is my point. Regardless of the party that's in power, you've always got people, regardless of the R or D beside their name, that they are so attracted to that power and or the money associated with it that that's what they're operating under is I've got that power and I'm going to do what I want to with it.
So tell us about the new freshmen, and it's so hard for them to know what to do, to figure things out. How long did it take you as a representative to really figure things out, where the problems were, where the power was?
Well, it began for me in that first term a long time ago, starting in 1987. 87 and 88, they were my first 2 years. And I say that, it would have taken longer. And I think typically it takes a little while, but when you get up there, you can figure it out real quick, how things work because you're told either directly or you find out indirectly that you go along with leadership or you won't get anything done. You won't get anything accomplished really. And the more that you go along with leadership, the more that you'll have personal benefits and other types of quote success. Doesn't mean you'll get to have anything heard that you want heard or passed. It just means you'll be one of the favored ones.
So our RNC chair right now is Michael Watley. Michael Watley and I had done a couple different events together, trying to encourage good people to run. And here's what he used to say, and I'm paraphrasing, but he would say, seldom do you find someone bad who becomes good in the legend. It happens every so often, right? Somebody else becomes more conservative. But most often, the conservatives become more moderate. And so I would say to people, seldom do we find somebody bad who becomes good, but often we have good who become less good. And so the integrity is key. But tell me, Representative, why is it that the longer they are in the chamber, or the higher they climb, the more moderate they become? Is that the compromise that it takes to make things happen? Is that the compromise that it takes within our own party to not be stamped out?
The answer is yes. That's the compromise that happens, period. It just does. And any of us that are paying attention as activists or whatever and watching over a period of time, and what one learns from that is that there's a very small number that go up there and stick to their guns and vote what they say they are. Let's say it's conservative or something, whatever. It's the Constitution, it's this or that, but they stick to their principles as opposed to make these changes as they go along. And that's hard to do because you're on your own, you're not going to get any help. You get treated like a redheaded stepchild a lot. You get called names, you get called too conservative. I always love that one. What is too conservative? How do you know if what's too conservative? But the real bottom line here is I think people need to understand this isn't just about one of many problems that we have. It's one of the number one problems that we actually have all over our country in every state, and especially at the federal level, that we elect people to represent us. It's the democracy side. I don't like to use that word, but so many people use it today. And our opponents in our own party are using this. They're saying that the ability we have in Oklahoma to circulate a statewide citizens referendum petition to put a question on the ballot for the people to decide if they want a law to go into effect. Here they're claiming that's direct democracy, and we're a republic and we can't have that. Well, the reason they're doing that is because we're bringing this as a state question on the ballot in 2026 for people to vote on here in this state. And the activism and the history of it is so great. People understand what the problem is. They understand that you've got leaders that say no to the people that we send up there, and they won't hear anything that they want. And then you don't have a record. You don't have others on record having voted for or against something, or having claimed they're this way in their philosophy. Oh, but here's what they really did while they were up there. So you can eliminate those things when you say, no, you can't have your bill heard.
So for clarity, explain in one sentence, what is it that's going to be on the ballot in 2026 in Oklahoma?
Well, it's going to be more words than one sentence, but it's not going to be complicated. See, the problem is no, these are some of the words that are going to be used. No duly elected member of the House or Senate can tell another duly elected member of the House or Senate that they can't have their bill heard, period. And we're going to have penalties. If someone does that again, it's going to be a $10,000 personal fine that they cannot pay with campaign money or somebody's help. And the second infraction, if it ever occurs, you're going to be expelled from the legislature.
Okay, so I have concerns with this. All right.
Okay.
So I think we're on the total same page, and I don't even have her permission, but I'm going to do it anyway. I sent this to a friend we both know, and I said, I'm interviewing Charles Key, and she goes, oh, smart guy. So there you go. And I do have permission. I just asked her. That's your former national committee woman, Dr. Carolyn McClarty, telling me what you are. All right.
She's great.
She is great. And she thinks you're great. So I've got a lot of questions here, though. We're all frustrated, but I want to make sure that in the process of the change, we don't harm ourselves long term, right? Because the problem is the corruption of the system. It's the integrity of the heart that we're dealing with. And so no matter what we change as law, there's always going to be somebody, a loophole or somebody to corrupt that as well. When you say that every bill has to be heard if they want it heard, all right, right now we elect parties because we want that party's agenda to rule, right? We want that party to fulfill their agenda. If the minority party can say, no, we demand you hear this bill, I think it could really harm because here's why. In the media, you see it. There's so much misinformation. We just talked about it with that very serious case in Minnesota. But imagine political issues especially. There's so much misinformation, go COVID if you want, disinformation, and then they silence the good information. And social media even censored it. So especially, I see this on referendums. This is a huge concern after Roe v. Wade was corrected. I won't say it was overturned, but it was corrected by the U.S. Supreme Court. Then right away, Kansas lost a pro-life initiative because of the fear tactics, fear mongering, and just flat out false information put out by the abortion agenda, the abortion proponents. And yet they couldn't get their message out. They didn't have the big money. And now Kansas, a pro-life state, has abortion codified in their constitution. So this is my concern. Any bad bill without good education, you know how hard it is to get legislators. These are citizen legislators, and that's what I want. That's what we want. But how could we get good information to them before they vote on a bad bill if this would go forward?
Well, it's really simple. I think part of the problem is, and we all feel this way. This is what I'm dealing with in Oklahoma. Same questions you're bringing up. We've been talking about it for a long time. We've been doing this way, the way we've been doing things. We're in your state, wherever we're at, for such a long time. We're used to seeing it that way. We're used to feeling it that way, that somebody's looking out in case, well, something does go wrong. Somebody's going to be there to stand in and do something about it. Or here's one they're working on right now, the left, a jungle primary bill here in Oklahoma.
Oh, no.
As a matter of fact, well, anyway, we'll get off on a bigger subject, but so they're using that as an excuse. The leadership tells us, like they told us in my party here in Oklahoma, behind closed doors, you need us to have this power so we can protect you when things like this come up. That's how they keep in power. Well, what happens is if they won't hear your bill, Tamara, if you get elected, then there's never going to be a vote on it. Let's say the left wing gets up and in the legislature and they offer a bill that fill in the blank. It's crazy, whatever it is. We had one that a senator one year tried to make it a law that every barbecue restaurant in Oklahoma could no longer have paper napkins. It was mandated they had to have cloth napkins. And that is a stupid bill. But they use that as an example. Say, you need us to say no to that so you don't waste your time on it. No, 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 no. Here's what could happen. Somebody brings up a dumb bill like that, and then another member like me immediately says, Mr. Chairman, if it's in a committee, or Mr. Speaker, I move to table that bill. Or there's several motions that will immediately stop action on the bill and take an immediate vote, or, well, it'll take a vote to table it, which then says, we're not going to consider this now. We've considered it. We've heard what it's about. We don't like it. Let's take a vote and see how many people agree. And you send it away. It's that quick as we talked about it practically.
So
And
don't you, they'll just be organized then, and anytime a bill that they don't want to talk about, they'll have it organized and someone will stand up and say exactly what you said and they'll have the votes lined up and it's done.
But the answer is not fear and let's shut everything down and control everything, because you really can't do that. If people are if
And
people are dead set, if people are dead set to do something, they're going to do it. But I think where we've made mistakes, all of us Americans, period, not just conservatives or Republicans, all of us, but particularly us, is we need to start informing and educating ourselves and our fellow citizens so they can make the wisest decision.
Yeah.
I mean, look what we've done in our public schools. We move towards less information and less responsibility on the learner's part to be responsible for themselves, and that just feeds on itself.
I'm with former state representative Charles Key, and I just appreciate being able to ask questions and just have conversation on what is a possible way out. I think there's other solutions as well that could help in this area, and certainly agree with you. There's changes that need to be made no matter which party. Changes need to be made in helping government move a little more fluidly and be more responsive to the people. And thanks, everybody. I am Tamara Scott with the Tamara Scott Show. My special guest today is former Oklahoma State Rep Charles Key. Reagan, I'm going to have you play the video. It's a very quick video about democracy, number 3. Just a minute
Many
long.
Americans would be surprised to learn that the word democracy does not appear in the Declaration of Independence or the U.S. Constitution. Nor does it appear in any of the constitutions of the 50 states. The founders did everything they could to keep us from having a democracy. James Madison, rightly known as the father of the Constitution, wrote in essay number 10 of the Federalist Papers, "Democracies have ever been spectacles of turbulence and contention, have ever been found incompatible with personal security or the rights of property, and have in general been as short in their lives as they have been violent in their deaths." Alexander Hamilton agreed, and he stated, "We are a republican government. Real liberty is never found in despotism or in the extremes of democracy." And John Adams, a signer of the Declaration of Independence, stated, "Democracy never lasts long. It soon wastes, exhausts, and murders itself." The founders had good reason to look upon democracy with contempt, because they knew that the democracies in the early Greek city-states produced some of the wildest excesses of government imaginable.
So, Representative Key, you mentioned democracy earlier, and so that's a quick little snippet from our friends at JBS, John Birch Society. And folks, there's great information there. If you hear somebody criticizing them, take a step back and reflect and assess who it is and what they're saying, because I've not found, I'm not going to say I agree with anybody on everything, including my spouse or myself some mornings, right?
Mhm.
But the information that I think they give is pretty astounding and astute. All right, so we're talking about the possibility of helping government move, reclaiming government. But if we just run these bills through, some of them will be, I hate to say afraid, some of them will be pushed through before they're ready. Can the legislator say, no, we're not ready yet?
Yes, I mean, the way things operate now, it still operates the same way. It's just that right now, in a majority of the states, actually, some states have rules that say you've got to hear the bill, or you can't just shelve it. You got to give some kind of report on it. So you can't just deep six it. So here's the deal: is if 101 of us, like here in Oklahoma, in the House, 101 members in the House, it's a nice round number. If one of those persons is picked out as being unworthy of being elected to the legislature, or a nut job, or whatever, too extreme, should we just not let that person participate, even though the people from their district elected them to go up there and represent them?
Right, we
So
just saw this in Maine, right? Representative Laurel Libby, not even allowed on the House floor, not allowed to talk to her own bills, not allowed to offer debate, wasn't allowed to even participate in the process. I have no regard for that. I have absolutely no regard for that. It is up to the people, and they send whom they wish. And we don't have recall in Iowa. Once you're elected, you're elected. We don't have recall, and I'm glad we don't, really, to be honest with you. But here's another question. The leadership is the one who picks the committees, and I have seen leadership not give committee assignments to people they don't like. That infuriates me as well. That's one of those things I think we need to fix.
well, as we've gone along, and as I've gone along all these several decades now, and bring this issue up, and I fought it in the legislature, got a lot of stories we could talk about. And people say, well, yeah, what about this? Like you brought that up. A lot of good ideas. And other legislators here in Oklahoma say we need to do this other thing, limit the terms of the speaker and the speaker pro tem, for example, would be a very beneficial thing.
So for the record, I oppose term limits, but on the seat of an appointed leader, I think it might have merit.
You know what? You and I agree 1000% on everything you just said. That's right. And we've got to get to where we understand that we have to really treat each other equally and fairly, because that's not what's happening.
Yes.
You can't have a representative government or a constitutional government. You cannot have it if you don't let the representatives of the people participate. And that's what they're doing. We had an appropriations chair for 10 years. We got 12-year term limitations. He's last year in 24, he's running for his last term. He was just one of the insider leadership guys. A fine man beat him named Jim Shaw. He's kind of a, quote, rising star is what they're calling him here in Oklahoma. Homeschool dad, geologist for a big company, and over the years, very conservative person. He runs against him, and all you know what breaks loose. It became the most expensive House race in Oklahoma history. Even the governor came out and knocked doors for the incumbent. And you see, he had all of this money, special interest group money behind him. That's who's running things. And you're not going to stop it unless you treat everybody equally according to the laws and the rules if necessary. Thomas Jefferson is one of my favorite quotes of all time. Jefferson said, "In matters of power, let no more be heard of confidence in man, but bind him down by the chains of the Constitution." The concept is the same. The rules must be equal and fair to all people and applied fairly, or they don't matter. They don't matter. They really don't matter. And so right now we're electing people to go represent us, and they cannot do that. Because like the guy I just gave the example of, Jim Shaw, you know what happened when he got elected? He's in his first term this year. They will not hear any bill of his as payback.
Because they're mad.
They're mad at him. Plus, they're not hearing conservative bills like his anyway. And you know what? Nobody knows it because they don't hear it, and there's no record.
I think that's the key too, is we have a couple little individual journalists, right? Who will bring some of this to light. And so it is getting out, but you're right. The public needs to know it. All right. So let me tell you a couple things. The one bill, I had a speaker tell me, we were pushing a heartbeat bill. And she said, Tamara, and this was in confidence, but I've gotten permission from her now to share it because that's long ago. This was long ago. She said, I can call people into my office and try and push them on this vote. I can push the vote because the pro-life groups, and some of them a little more militant than others, are wanting that vote, right? We want to know who's on record. We want record. And she said, I can give you a record, but you will lose votes. If you give me time, everybody has a story on this issue. It's very sensitive. Everybody has a family member somehow involved. If you'll give me time to listen to the stories and talk with the representatives, I think I can bring you more votes. But if you force this vote now, you're going to lock people in. And once you lock in a vote, good luck getting them to change it. And I thought that was awfully wise. And I thought she was accurate. So where does that play into what you're talking about?
Well, you're talking about one issue, and so there's lots of issues, and they can make a difference when we ask the question and we explore like we're doing now that it's not a one size fits all. That was wise and what's the word I want to use? Diligent observation of what's going on and who's who and all that stuff. And that's always a part of the equation when you're involved in, politics and the legislature, stuff like that, is who am I dealing with? And what's the subject? Sometimes the subject is not that difficult. Like, let's say pro-life. Everybody's pretty much knows the issue there. So you're either on, you're on one side or the other, basically. Now, there can be some nuances of different things we're doing, but let's say the bill is kind of like your bill was simple and right up front. And so would a plain, simple pro-life bill. So in cases like that, I don't think, you people are going to vote one way or the other, but it's really like Harry Truman said so far long ago, if you can't stand the heat, get out of the kitchen. And so when we get up there, we got to take some tough stances. We were talking earlier about when you first get elected and what it was like for me and what it's like for others. Well, I could have given in. I had many opportunities. I had other opportunities to help me move up the ladder because some people liked me and, were trying to help me move. I could have thought, man, I can move. I could be in Congress or the U.S. Senate right now. I really think that's a real possibility, but it is for many people. It's not Charles Key. It's that when you get there, you can do things, and you can do it if you get in line with the leadership. Okay.
Right.
But if you go against them, you better be a strong person, have backing, have your own money, something, if you're going to continue to stay in the public realm.
And part of this, I think, falls at the feet of the voters
It
because
does.
they don't
Yes.
search information. They just take whatever somebody says, whether it's the party mantra, and I'm National Committee woman, but whether it's the party mantra, whether it's the ads, whether it's the TV, and instead of going and having a conversation and deciding for themselves, and I don't know about your state, but in Iowa, it is grassroots politics. And you have a chance, what they call retail politics. You have a chance to meet anybody running for office, any of them. And so you can talk and decide. And I tell people, weigh it out, pray it out for yourself. Don't just listen to what everybody else is doing. But I think that's a lot of the problem is the voters are just not paying attention so often. And I get it. We're all trying to survive. There's so much coming at us as we talk about the headlines. The other thing is so many bills coming at legislators. I think ours were 700 to 1,100 bills in a 4-month session. And of course, they're citizen legislatures, which I love. I don't want experts. I want citizens who deal with family problems, everyday world. And so on the ballot in 2026, and let me just be clear, I'm not advocating for this because I'm still learning, but I'm asking information. And as we tell you, you weigh it out, you pray it out, and decide for yourself. So Charles, tell us more about that ballot initiative.
Well, I know we're getting close to the end here, so I'm going to mention a couple of other things. One is that we will have language on that state ballot proposed law that would say something like this, that every member of the legislature has a minimum of 3 bills that they are guaranteed to be heard in a given year, and that the legislature can increase that number. They can hear more than that if they want to, but members have the right to have at least 3 bills heard. So that's been kicked around a lot. One of the biggest arguments over the many years, and when this comes up frequently, is, well, and somebody brought this up recently, is the reason we went ahead and put the 3 bill limit in there. Somebody said, well, what if you get some, of course, it was a Republican saying a crazy Democrat. If you get some radical Democrat that wants to file 250 bills, and he says, and if you don't put the limit in there, I want all of my bills heard.